know how.
Smile 2. Is it worth watching? Perhaps. It obviously depends on how much of a wimp you are. Are you a wimp? Because this video is only for the non-wimps. So rev up your grand Cherokees and lather yourself up in whatever makes you feel most comfortable, because this is going to be a difficult question to answer. Like and subscribe for more videos. Let me just start out by saying that it was a really good film. It accomplished what it was set out to accomplish, which was to freak you out more than Yzma's eye cucumbers.
This had better be good!
I actually get really freaked out by these types of movies, and when I was driving home, I actually had to stay on the phone with my wife just so that I didn't feel alone. I also tried listening to a sleep story that night, but I couldn't help but think that the voice through the recording was going to tell me that I was a horrible person or something.
It's because you're a horrible person.
The ones that scare me the most are the ones that are set in the real world. For example, the Alien franchise doesn't really scare me because it's set in an alternate dystopian future. If you're already not a big fan of horror movies, then you're just definitely not going to like this movie. There were tons of jump scares in here, but there was only one jump scare that made me kind of go like this. Like that. It kind of made me hyperventilate in the theaters. Starting off with the plot and the pacing, the film did a really good job at giving you a slow build during the scary moments, while keeping the tension and the adrenaline super high. This film uses almost all the same elements that were used in the first movie, but in a better and more unique way. There were really no dull moments, and even when the tension came back down to baseline, they threw in a bit of humor to lighten the mood a bit before throwing us back to the wolves. Sometimes I couldn't tell whether the humor was intentional or not. There's actually this one part in particular that does actually make it seem like it's supposed to be more scary than it is, but I just couldn't help but laugh a little bit because it's so ridiculous and kind of unsettling at the same time. But maybe that's what they were going for. I'm not the director, I don't know. Another thing that adds to the humor is the main character's friend, Gemma. Almost everything she says is over the top sarcastic, and so it's kind of hard to not give a little chuckle whenever she opens her mouth. You would occasionally get glimpses of our main character's past, only for all the pieces to come together at the very end. Which is a well-known mode of action, but it's used frequently because it works very well. And they were able to achieve this in a way that is more unique from other flashbacks. There was one moment where I didn't even realize it was a flashback till about a minute into it. In all the cases that we've seen so far, the smile creature takes about a week to reveal its true form to the affected individual. Therefore, this movie also goes through about a week time span. However, we are seeing through the eyes of Sky Riley, the main character. And when you're infected with this smile creature, time can sometimes be warped, so 5 hours could feel like 30 minutes. Which also helped with the pacing of the film itself. Now, this film isn't exactly what I was expecting, but that doesn't necessarily make it a bad film. However, I think this film falls a little too closely in line with the first film. I would have liked to see the universe kind of grow and expand a bit more. The smile creature actually had less screen time as its true form than the first one. And I was hoping that it would have more screen time so that we could unravel just a little bit more of the mystery behind this creature and how it came to be. Well, like slowly peeling back the layers behind the creature like an onion in each movie. But it does set the scene for what could be a smile plague. Again, that doesn't make it a bad movie by any means, but it just is a little too similar to the first one that I would have liked to see. Now, I think the acting was very well done, probably one of the best parts of this movie, especially the performance by Naomi Scott. She was just really good at giving herself a little fake tear down the side when she was a little anxious or scared, and it seems like she was very well coached in knowing how slow or fast she should turn for a specific scene. I also really enjoyed the idea of her character as well. She portrays a young and popular pop star, giving you insights into what it can actually be like being that popular with that many demands behind the scenes. It gives you a pretty good psychological character study into the mind of Sky Riley and what all her biggest fears are. The best part about having a pop star as a main character is that she is constantly surrounded by people who want her autograph and by people who are just trying to set her up for the tour that she's about to start. It pumps even more adrenaline into the heart of this movie when you just don't know who the next victim is going to be. And since there are so many people just roaming around all the time, it messes with our head even more because we don't know what's real and what's not. I still don't fully know what was real. Now, Riley herself was never that funny. It was always the things and people around her that were just over the top sarcastic or were just meant to portray high-class individuals in sort of a goofy way. I actually very much needed this when I was watching because I probably would have been clutching my friend's thigh the whole time if they didn't add this in there. Something I was very well pleased about was the cinematography and the different types of shots they used. For example, the entire opening sequence is constructed in a way that gives off the feeling that it's all one shot. going from static to handheld to what looks like a crane shot at the end. It was probably one of the better opening sequences of the movies this year, and it got you hooked right away. And it's very interesting how it connects to the rest of the story. There were also some very cool barrel roll shots of the city when it transitioned to a new scene, where the city would be completely upside down, adding to the unsettling nature of the film. Although it was actually a little too much rolling around, and I had to look away from the screen because it was too disorienting. But that just might be me. A lot of close-up shots of people's faces were made only when it was necessary, but these shots are really good for not showing the audience what is behind the person or where the person is. It makes it so that the person and the audience are isolated from the world around them, and they really did a good job at using these types of shots here. Something else I really appreciated was that most of the high-tension moments happened during the day, but seeing as it's a horror film, that doesn't necessarily mean that it's super bright out. Because people associate fear with darkness, and so that's why most scary movies, and actually all scary movies, are either filmed at night or just are filmed in the dark or dimly lit spaces. There was this moment though where the main character turns on all the lights in her apartment, and that's something you don't see very often. Even with all of her lights on, her place is still pretty dimly lit, but she still turned on all the lights, which I give that a plus. That scene is also one of the most unsettling moments in the movie, so it can be done. Characters don't have to put on night vision goggles and roam the house with the lights off. This proves that you can create a really unsettling environment and still have the lights on. The last thing I wanted to address here is that when the smile creature eventually does end up revealing itself, I thought it looked quite a bit different from the first one. I thought it looked a little bit more stop motion mingled with some CGI. And at first I thought the creature in the first film looked a lot better. But then I ended up looking up the first one again, and it turns out they actually look pretty similar. However, I do think they were a little bit more creative in the first one with how the smile entity gets revealed. They honestly didn't do that much with the creature at the end of this movie, which was a little disappointing. But it didn't take much away from how good the rest of the movie is. If I was to rate this film between a frown and a creepy smile, I would probably give it one of these. Swap your thoughts in the comments on what you think about Smile too. I've swapped my thoughts, and if you want to see my thoughts on Joker Foley Adieu, then click right up here, and I'll see you on the other side.